Hello, this is Tashism. I'm recording another video this week for the Week 1 review for the 7-point Highlander tournament for the Mox Emerald. Gonna do a really quick deck tech, not the 23-minute monstrosity that we did on Jund previously. Just wanted to do just a quick touch up on the updates I made, especially since awkward, I had 8 points in the previously listed video, so I wanted to just do a quick update on this and make sure everyone knew that there were 7 points in my deck for this week. So the differences between this and that, pretty small. I cut Skull Clamp obviously because that was my 8th point, but just wanted to touch up on what the differences were from this one and the last one. If you want the full deck tech, check out that video and then ignore everything I say about Skull Clamp, Bitter Blossom, Young Pyromancer, Valras Stronghold, and Red Elemental Blast in the sideboard, because I cut all of those from the deck, kind of. First of all, cut the Valras Stronghold for a Field of the Dead. They're both good grindy cards. I wanted to go more with creatures on the ground to help sort of gum things up in case people wanted to get into more of a standoff situation. Field of the Dead absolutely helps break us out of that. Also, put in Red Elemental Blast to the main. Looked like there was going to be a lot of blue in the meta, so I decided to do just sort of a meta call of Red Elemental Blast. Then, of course, needed a couple more cards for the main. I put in Valky, God of Lies. He's pretty good, obviously taking creatures out of your opponent's hand. Turning him into an Uro on turn 3 was the dream. Didn't have the chance to do that this week. Played against Red Deck wins and aggro prowess creatures, neither of which were playing cards like that, so didn't get to live the dream there, but at least Valky is going to be good versus those sorts of cards. Also put in Vampire Hexmage. One of the decks I had a problem with was the blue-green Urza Planeswalker nonsense deck, and being able to take care of an Oko with a 2-drop real quick, just play it, plop it, sacrifice and get rid of that Planeswalker is always a good call. And then, of course, lastly, cut the Red Blast from the sideboard, so I had an open slot, and I wanted to put in Boil. I, once again, really thought blue was going to be pretty heavily represented this week, so I just wanted to make sure I had all the outs to blue cards and blue decks, and Boil is an absolute beating against those kinds of decks. So, there we are. Like I said, there's just the quick and dirty updated deck tech, couple changes there. For everything else, just check out the other video on this channel, and we'll get to our round 1 match here in a second. Alright, and this is our round 1, week 1 opponent, Jorge Ledoux. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but let's just keep this PG. Nonetheless, lost the die roll. Let's check out our opening hand here. Obviously revealed Lurrus. Kept his hand, seemed pretty good, had a blocker, had a way to draw a card. Traverse is a very good card. He plays an aggro creature on turn 1 as they're apt to do. Play Bobble, pop Bobble. Play land, pass turn, just things. Hits us with Reckless Charge. It's 5 damage on turn 2. That's pretty solid, I won't lie. Game plan here, take 2, play Vampire Hexmage as a way to contain that Blister Coil weird. I was pretty sure that guy wasn't long for the world anyway, but he was. Game plan was going to be to unearth the Vampire Hexmage if I needed to, but hey, I drew Inquisition, that's great, and Mental Misstep really resolved that pretty quickly. So, game plan, like I said, was to probably traverse for a fatty way to deal with creatures. Unfortunately, I don't have a removal creature here, so I couldn't tag their stuff. He hit Scale up here, which is pretty unfortunate. So, taking 8 here, going down to 4. I blocked, if I remember correctly. Yes, I did. Seal of Fire felt like a great draw. I could get rid of the Blister Coil. Then I could traverse. Got Death Shadow as a way to threaten an attack back if they didn't have a spell. But 4, they had me anyways. Absolutely, because if the opponent drew a land, they could just Reckless Charge and smack us in the face real hard. If they drew any spell, they could still kill us, because any of their spells probably got them there. So I was in a really bad position there. There was really no answer for me there. So that's why I got the Death Shadow there as a way to threaten an attack back for lethal. Didn't really go that way for me. But like I said, there was really nothing good I could have gotten there that would have won us the game. was hoping they just had creatures in their hand, but mutagenic growth absolutely got them there. So that's how game one went, and we'll go to game two just here in a second. All right, and now we're back for game two against 5-color aggro prowess. I don't really know the best way to describe it. Just prowess creatures attack fast. What we decided to do was bring in Cindervines, Pyroblast, Thorn and Sphere, and Veil of Summer. Pyroblast and Veil of Summer are there, of course, because their opponent is playing counter spells, with the added addition from Pyroblast being able to kill their creatures. The Blister Coil Weird and the Elusive Spellfist were both blue from game one, so that was always nice to be able to deal with. We brought in Thorn and Sphere because they're trying to hit a critical mass of spells, so being able to stop them from doing that is pretty good by slowing them down and taxing their mana. Plus, we do have that side plan of Strip, Waste, Life from the Loam, Wrenn and 6, so on and so forth. So being able to cut their lands down when they're already playing a limited amount of them with Thorns and Spheres in play, pretty darn good. Cindervines, last but not least, it definitely gets rid of things, artifacts and enchantments, of course, but also, like I said previously, they're trying to hit a critical amount of spells. So if I'm able to keep pinging them when they keep casting spells into it, then it helps me get them dead quicker. Cards we cut our reanimation cards, so Unearth and Animate Dead. They did not excite me very much. Animate Dead is bad against their deck because what are they going to do? What am I going to reanimate? A Blister Coil Weird, a 1/3 Storm Chaser Mage? I'm not playing a lot of spells, so since I'm not doing that, that's not going to help me. So it seems like a bad idea to try and do that. And Unearth, sure, if they kill a creature, I can bring it back, but I just did not get excited about that. So those are two cards I cut. Now Spellbomb. What am I going to do? Take Reckless Charge out of their graveyard and draw a card? Seems a little slow and a little clunky. Doesn't do what we need it to. Painful Truths draws me 3 cards, but it costs 3 mana and kills me dead. No thank you. Traverse the Ulvenwald. There's no real trump card for me to tutor up with that. If I was playing like a Tabernacle in the sideboard, which, trust me, I considered it, I could definitely go get that and cut them off mana more and stop them from being able to do stuff, or go get, like a Walking Ballista so I could start shooting their creatures. That would have been great. But I don't have those cards, so therefore not exactly something I wanted to deal with. So we're on the play here. So we're obviously going to play first. Hey, there's our Lurrus. Thank you, Moto, for reminding me of that. Okay, I fast-forwarded through that hand. I'm not going to go back to it, obviously I can't. But it's a greedy hand. It was a Stomping Ground, I believe, and a Strip Mine and a Seal of Fire, and then a bunch of good black cards. Looked good in theory, but I couldn't cast my spells, and getting greedy is not where we need to be right now. I definitely was of the mindset that I wanted to get removal spells, kill their creatures, and yes, Seal of Fire looked good, but not exactly what I wanted to do here. Now, this hand, phenomenal. 3 removal spells, a Thorn of Amethyst to slow them down, and 3 lands. I have to ship something back here. I'm pretty sure I shipped back the Overgrown Tomb, because they're not playing Strip and Waste, so therefore our Grove of the Burn Willows gets to cover all of our mana sources anyways, and Urborg gets everything else, so we're good here. And I did ship back that Overgrown Tomb. So here, what we wanted to do is cast our Seal of Fire, first and foremost. It's great because it sits on the table and threatens to remove whatever they have. Now, I'm going to take a quick aside here and talk about what our game plan is versus these kinds of decks. This kind of deck, or even Infect. The game plan here is you want to remove the creatures either on the end of their turn or on your turn. Long and short, you don't want to try and kill their creatures in combat unless they're going to kill you, in which case, well, you have to make the push to kill it, otherwise you're going to die. Or you don't want to do it pre-combat. Reason for that, especially against Prowess, is if I try to kill their creature and they have the counter spell for it, they get to pump the creature anyways. Or they get to pump it with a pump spell, and then I've wasted my time. So I get to take the damage I was going to take anyways. So if I do it on their instep, if I try to Fatal Push a creature after combat and they counter spell it, yes, that's bad. I've lost my removal spell against their creature, but that's one less pump spell they get to have off of the Prowess triggers. So it is better, once again, to do it basically after combat on their turn, or not on their turn at all. So we plop the Seal of Fire right into play. Love it. Happy to have it into play. This is definitely what we want to be doing. So opponent here, Gataxian Probe. I have nothing to be ashamed of with this hand. They pass turn, comes back to us. I draw Veil of Summer. So here I actually cast my Collective Brutality. Wanted to check their hand for a counter spell or a good pump spell. Obviously we're not going to escalate because the 2 damage drain doesn't really matter, because my cards are better than, hitting them for 2 and gaining 2 life. And there's no creatures in play, so forget the other one. They're going to crack their Polluted Delta here and counter it with a Spell Pierce. I'm fine with this. Taking out a counter spell, perfectly fine by me. So they're going to play a land here and crack up. And then they play Preordain. Fine by me. My game plan here is to drop this Thorn of Amethyst. I would like to draw a land here, which I did. So we tap low. We Thorn of Amethyst. It resolves. That's great. In theory, I was a little disappointed with the fact that I tapped my Grove of the Burn Willows when it was a Triome here, so I could represent Lightning Bolt. But Thorn's in place, so it really didn't matter. Now, if Thorn got countered, I still wanted to have the reason to represent a Lightning Bolt. But small percentages. So we pass turn here. They play, they crack. They've got their 3 dual lands. Play the Storm Chaser Mage. That's fine. So we turn ships back to us. We get life from the loam. We're definitely going to remove this creature. They could have had Mental Misstep or Force of Negation. And if they did, well, that would be our luck. So they don't do anything here. We're fine with this. We're going to play our land and go get our companion. Because being able to recur Seal of Fire over and over again seems pretty good. Now they're going to pretty much do nothing this turn again. We draw Blood Crypt. Blood Crypt's a great draw. That way we can play Lurrus with Veil of Summer backup. Now, I'll be completely honest here. I don't think they actually have anything in their deck that can counter our Lurrus Daze or something like that, but we have the mana for it, so I don't think that part mattered to us. But I'll tell you what we don't do is we do not crack this Seal of Fire, and the reason behind that is if they have a removal spell for our Lurrus, suddenly the Seal of Fire is in our graveyard, and we have done nothing with it. Like, we can't get it back, and our onboard removal spell is 100% gone. So that's why we don't crack here, and they absolutely have the Lightning Bolt, so hey, tight play there, making sure we don't drop our Seal of Fire. So they're going to cast Gush here. 8 cards in hand, nothing to do with it. Perfectly fine by me. So Underground Sea. So we draw a Resistor here. 100% want to drop that into play. We have Veil of Summer backup for it. It resolves. They can only cast free spells. Okay, they can cast 1-drops, but I'm fine with that. The game plan here is just to sort of slowly slap on that Chokehold. So we're going to crack this Polluted Delta, and then we're going to cast our Life from the Loam. Now, our game plan here is to 100% now try to Life from the Loam repeatedly into one of our threats. Kroxa, Waste and Strip are absolutely threats here, because if we've got 2 sphere effects on the table, it's really hard for them to cast spells, so keeping them down on a limited number of lands is really bad for them. And Field of the Dead is also great. I'll point out that we have 6 lands with unique names in play already, so hitting Field of the Dead at any point would 100% just let me start making tokens repeatedly to kill our opponents quickly. So that's 100% my game plan here, so we're going to cast Life from the Loam. I'm just going to fast forward through this turn. So they play Fetch Land. Nothing happens here. Dredge Life. We hit nothing. So we're going to play Crack and then regrow with life. They play Breeding Pool tapped and do nothing else. So here, our Life from the Loam plan is getting a little less exciting considering they have 5 lands in play, but we're still going to dredge. And dredge hits a Nurturing Peatland and a Forest. That's great because now, of course, we can get back our Nurturing Peatland, so we get that back and play it. Opponent's turn. They play their 6th land, which is slightly disappointing. They play Sprite Dragon. I'm absolutely fine with this. Getting hit in the face for 1 doesn't bother me. So in a turn, of course, we're going to crack our Nurturing Peatland and draw a card. Off the draw, we're going to dredge. So we dredge Life from the Loam, and we hit, oh yes, the Wasteland. The Wasteland's fantastic because, of course, now we can start attacking their mana base. We draw for turn and draw Punishing Fire. Yes, please, and thank you. So we go for Punishing Fire. We hesitate trying to think if we want to just keep going on the Wasteland plan. Then I realize they have 6 lands in play, and probably getting a creature out of play is pretty good, especially when I have that Veil of Summer backup. So they try to play something. I ready my Veil of Summer, and it's a Submerge on their own creature. Yes, please, go right ahead. Use your own removal spell to Time Walk yourself. That's fine. I'll just regrow my Grove at the end of turn. This is all fine by me. Play Forest. And then they crack their fetch land, shuffle away their Sprite Dragon. So I'm fine with this. So turn ships. Opponent thinks about what they want to do, tap some mana. They're not in the best position. They play Land Grant. Perfectly fine with this. They play land tapped. They can only play free spells. This is all fine by me. We go to end step. We're going to regrow that Punishing Fire. So now is when we're going to start the Life from the Loam chain. So I'm going to life, blow up one of their lands. We're just going to fast forward through this turn. It's definitely not exciting to watch. So we'll just sort of tag through turns if they do anything. Nope, so they pass turn. So we're going to, of course, dredge Life from the Loam. Let's see, did we hit anything exciting? Nope, Caracas and Wasteland. So once again, just keep that chain going. Life from the Loam, waste their land. They put Noxious Revival. Noxious Revival targets their, I believe it was their Storm Chaser Mage. So they're going to cast their Storm Chaser Mage on this turn. So here's where I make a decision. Opponent has Storm Chaser Mage and is going to attack us. Now, I could, in theory, Punishing Fire the Storm Chaser Mage and then Seal of Fire it. And unless they have a Mutagenic Growth, then they're going to lose their creature. I didn't end up doing this because it felt like a trap to me. The thing that I was mostly worried about is they have a Now Spellbomb in their sideboard. So me putting both of my graveyard-based engine cards into the graveyard and then them being able to go like land Nile Spellbomb would ruin my day. Then I would be stuck with a Nurturing Peatland, some other lands, and a Veil of Summer. That's not where I want to be. So I definitely wanted to play this fairly slow. Now, if they went for a spell there to pump their creature, then absolutely I'd just kill it on the spot. But they didn't, so 100% just pass through the turn. We're going to Dredge Life. Dredging Life gets us Wasteland and Wooded Foothills. We're going to fast forward through that because Wasteland, our opponent, they gut shot. I think about doing something in response, but once again, then they can untap and maybe drop a Now Spellbomb, and I don't want to play that game. I don't want to lose that because then I'm in the same terrible position I just described earlier. So, opponent goes to attack. We ignore it. We go to 11. They do have Barbarian Ring in hand, and I believe they have Fire Blast in their deck, so I want to be a little careful of that. So we dredge life from the loam here, etc., etc. We do not hit any lands, other than, of course, the Wasteland that was already in our graveyard, so that's the thing we want to do. We're going to play Wasteland again, waste them all the way off blue mana. Opponent here. Tries to push in. I think this was a last-ditch effort, trying to just see if I let it happen. I don't 100%, so we absolutely, in response, Seal of Fire and Punishing Fire it, and the opponent scoops. So that's how game 2 went for us. That's definitely the kind of thing I wanted to do, was draw removal spells, have them in our opening hand, and then sort of lock them down, make sure they can't do much of anything. I was at some point going to get something to kill them. You know, if I got them off enough lands, then it would just be, okay, I'm not going to play anything else, or I'm not going to keep dredging, I'm just going to start drawing cards. And at some point I draw a threat to handle this. So we'll be back for game 3 in just a moment. All right, we're back for game 3. And our opponent is, of course, on the play because we won game 2. So they're deciding to play first. Look, we're not playing Manaless Dredge. Of course our opponent's going to be on the play. You know, they get the choice, but it's a quote-unquote choice. Speaking of choices, here's our hand. I keep this hand. Looking back on it now, just thinking in the blind, I'm not a fan of this hand. It absolutely, it reminds me of the game 2 7-card hand that I mulliganed. Crop rotation's good. I could crop, of course, get something to cast this Inquisition of Kozilek. I've got Thorn and Sylvan to help keep us on our mana and drawing cards. Or sorry, Thorn doesn't keep us on our mana at all. Thorn slows them down. Sylvan Library lets us draw extra cards to try and find the removal spells that we're lacking. So that's why I kept this hand. I think it's a good hand. I'll just fast forward through here, though. Turn 1, they play Taiga and Blister Coil Weird. I draw Sheltered Thicket, so I want to strip mine their opponent. They have limited lands. Hopefully we do not get punished by that. And they immediately play a second land. That's fine. Slightly punished there. I was hoping they kept sort of a loose one-hander, but our opponent definitely did. And they Shadow Rift, which lets them cantrip and hit us just a little harder. That's fine. You know, taking 2 and being at 18 is definitely not something that terrifies me. But what we do here is we draw a Vampire Hexmage. Not great. I was hoping to draw a Black Source so I could Inquisition them here. I could, in theory, play Taiga and Crop Rotation, but I was absolutely in the fear of Force of Negation and Mental Misstep. If they had those cards, I'd just sacrifice a land and then probably lose the game on the spot. So played a little conservatively there. Opponent plays their third land. Strip Mine play is definitely looking less appealing now. They play Kiln Fiend, which scares the bejesus out of me because that card is a way to die quickly. So they attack. We're going down to 17. My turn. I draw a Scourge of the Skyclays, and it's looking pretty bad for me. I'm going to play my Thorn of Amethyst because I have to, at this point, find a way to make sure that I don't get blown out by 2 spells. 2 spells makes that guy a 7/2 and make that a 3. That would be 10 damage right there. That's... I don't want to take 10 damage. So, we cast Thorn of Amethyst and ship the turn. Opponent plays a Stomping Ground, untapped, and casts a Sprite Dragon, which is disappointing to me. And then, just to make things slightly worse, they cast a Mutagenic Growth on their Blister Coil Weird. That makes it 10 damage. That is very bad, and makes the Sprite Dragon a 2/2. So we're about to take just 10 damage right to the face after all these triggers. Not where I wanted to be at all. So we're going to need to draw fairly well to get out of this. Urborg is a very good draw. I ended up deciding to cast the Vampire Hexmage here with the thought process that they have 2 cards in hand, so the probability that they have a removal spell is pretty low. And being able to block their Kiln Fiend, kill it, and then with first strike damage, and then remove all the counters from their Sprite Dragon seems pretty good. So I'm a big fan of that. We cast that, we ship turn, and hope we don't die here. Opponent plays land, and opponent plays Lightning Bolt on our Vampire Hexmage. That's disappointing because even if I sacrifice and remove all counters to make the Sprite Dragon a 1/1 after the counter put on, the Blister Coil Wield is 2, Kiln Fiend is 6, and the Sprite Dragon is 7. So, yep, this is where we die and lose our first match of the tournament. Like I hinted at earlier, I did not like that opening hand on Hindsight. Hindsight, of course, is 20/20, but I did not like that opening hand. It didn't have removal. They just got to play creatures and have them stick to the table. So that was bad. I even talked to the opponent afterwards, and he himself said that he thought this matchup was pretty bad for him unless he was able to get out quickly. And I agree. I agreed with him. That was how I assessed the matchup myself. But what I didn't do was find ways to counter that. So yes, game 2, I thought that my hand represented what game 2 was and was very good against what happened. But game 2, he didn't have a lot of creatures to play, or if he did, my Seal of Fire was just going to shut him off that. So I was thinking of game 2 when I was looking at my game 3 hand with land and a Strip Mine, and was thinking, I can cut him off, then Sphere, or Thorn in this case, and go from there. I should have mulliganed to a hand with removal spells. So I did not mulligan aggressively. So that was a reason that I lost. I'm not saying it was the only reason. The opponent's deck is very good, it looks like, and the opponent played well. Not to slight my opponent at all. I don't mean to do that. It's just a factor in me losing this third game was 100% me not assessing my role correctly when looking at that hand and losing. So, but oh well, it's 1 round out of 10, or 1 match out of 10 actually. So definitely other ways this can go. We still have another match in this round, so we're going to hop to that real quick in just a second. All right, and we are back for round 2, or week 1 Swiss 2, for the 7PH Mox Emerald tournament. I'm playing against Hotterho. I'm going to butcher everyone's names. Let's be honest, Tashism is also something that gets butchered a bunch too, so I'm used to it, but I apologize now to my opponents for butchering the names. They're on pretty bog standard red deck wins, which is a matchup I did not dislike. Price of Progress is obviously pretty much a nightmare scenario for us, as is Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon. Those cards shut down my mana base. I've got limited amounts of basics, but there are things I can still handle. I do have removal spells, Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, and other things that can get rid of enchantments. Creatures are even easier to take care of with like Seal of Fire and Lightning Bolt. But here we are. We lost the die roll. It happens. So opponents, of course, going to pick the play, especially since they're on the aggro. So we take... Here's our companion. I looked at this hand and immediately liked it. It has Inquisition of Kozilek, a way to cast Wrenn and 6 and Strip Mine. So low to the ground aggro decks love casting, or love having low amounts of lands in their deck, and this deck is definitely no exception. So being able to cut them off their mana really quickly with Wrenn and 6 is really good. Inquisition, of course, is there to make sure that we can nug something out of their hand in case they have something to threaten our Wrenn and 6 early. And Death Shadow is great because, hey, if we're going to take damage, why not drop a big dumb creature into play and gum that up? They were not playing a lot of instants and sorceries. If I remember correctly, it was 10 instants and sorceries in total. So they're more creature-based. So getting burned out was definitely something that was not the scariest to me. So obviously keep this hand. Opponent mulls to 6. They play Islet, and they play Monastery Swiftsphere and attack us. That's fine. We are going to draw a card for the turn and draw Painful Truths. And yeah, we're going to crack this fetch land, go get a Bayou, and Inquisition them. I don't know why Death Shadow's highlighted there, but definitely not going to play that. So I looked at this hand and deliberated over what I wanted to do for a while. My thought process went like this. I could either take their Eidolon, which is clearly the biggest threat in their hand, or I could take the Direfleet Daredevil, because they can't cast the Eidolon this turn, unless they draw a mountain. Direfleet Daredevil is something they can cast no matter what. So my thought process was I took the Direfleet Daredevil in the end. And the reason I took that was because they couldn't cast the Eidolon unless they drew a red source. If they drew a red source, it was bad for us. If they didn't draw a red source, then I'm going to strip mine them back on the Fiery Islet, and then we're going to play that game where no one has any lands in play. Which still seems fine to me because, yes, I need to draw a black source, but I have quite a few of those in the deck, and once I can get a Wrenn and 6 into play, it locks the game up. So that's why the Direfleet Daredevil went away there. Opponent did not draw a red source, or if they did, they wanted to strip mine us anyways. I'm fine with this. They're going to attack. They don't do anything else. It's our turn. We draw Urza's Bauble. That's great. So we're going to play the Bauble, crack the Bauble. If I remember correctly, that reveals Eidolon, so we don't know what the last card is. We strip mine them. They Lightning Bolt us. I get to draw a card. What do we draw? Lightning Bolt. That's fantastic. That gets the Monastery Swiftsphere off the table. I'm going to play the Stomping Ground untapped to absolutely Lightning Bolt their Swiftsphere here. Once again, I know that they have two red mana creatures in their hands, so that doesn't do anything. And I don't know what the third card is. The reason I shock here is because I can bolt it now, and then next turn I get to play Wrenn and 6 and take up Wrenn and 6 immediately to 4, getting back the Strip Mine. So if I try to play that tapped and then do it next turn, then I'm taking a turn off. So yes, I take some damage, go to 11 against Red Deck wins. Not the best spot to be in life total wise, but it's still a high enough life total. So they get Mutavault. Mutavault's fine by me. We're obviously just going to Nurturing Peatland, get back, play Wrenn and 6, get back Strip Mine, say go. And they scoop. Because they were under the lock, it did not matter. I could play, next turn it was going to be play Strip Mine, strip their Mutavault. Even if they had a land, they couldn't play 2 of the cards in their hand. It looks like they didn't draw a land. But the game was over. I had Strip and Wrenn and 6 combo too strong. And also, Death Shadow was going to come down next turn as a 4/4, and they probably weren't going to be able to kill it at all. And then I was going to threaten their life total really quickly. So pretty broken combination, I won't lie. Wrenn and 6 and Strip Mine. If you're not behind on the board, you just win on the spot. So that's where we were. We'll be back for game 2 and our sideboard plans in just a minute. All right, we're back for game number 2 in this match against Red Deck wins. So our sideboard plan, things we cut, pretty simple cuts. We cut Red Blast because it's a blank. The only thing that card is good for is discarding it to Collective Brutality, and then nothing else. We cut Painful Truths and Night's Whisper. I like drawing cards. I don't like losing life. Look, the Death Shadow and the Scourge of the Skyclave plans is pretty good, but you know what? They're going to do the work for me on making me lose life, so I'm not going to work that hard to help them out. And last but not least, Nihil Spellbomb. Again, card is not exciting in this matchup. I cannot remember if there was anything in their deck that actually did any graveyard synergies. So, no, I didn't want that. Cards I brought in, okay, I brought in a real motley crew of cards. I would have loved to have had a Weather the Storm, I'll be honest, was something I considered, especially versus like the Prowess deck would have been pretty good there too. But that's because I got the aggro half of the meta this week, so I'm thinking more about how do I shore up those matchups instead of what we had previously. So what I brought in was a Collector Oof, It's a grizzly bear that blocks creatures and sometimes actually deals with their cards. They have Moxes in their deck, Mox Ruby, Chrome Mox, Mox Diamond, and they also have the Looter Scooter. So things I'd like to deal with that way. So it's a grizzly bear first and foremost, but can have some utility against their mana or the Looter Scooter. Seal of Primordium deals with Blood Moon, other enchantments and artifacts, obviously, the aforementioned Moxes. Smuggler's Copter was the card. I just kept calling it by its nickname. Excuse me. Gorilla Shaman, a 1/1 for 1 that blocks creatures and blows up their Moxes. Yes, please and thank you. And last but not least, Cindervines. Sort of the same. I brought in 3 ways to blow up artifacts and a Collector Oof because they're better than my Painful Truths and my Night's Whisper, making me lose life. My Now Spellbomb is useless, and Red Blast is even more useless. So, there we go. So, we look at our hand here after we go through the usual motions of selecting Lurrus. I'm pretty sure I keep this hand. It has a removal spell, even though I'm going to shock myself, and it has a way to draw cards. I don't remember. I'm thinking I did keep this hand, and I did. Seal Fire is great. So they get to drop a 2-drop on turn 1. That's pretty bad for us. That's Kairi Zev, so recurring sources of damage, attacking for 3 every turn. So we're going to pop this Bauble immediately. And we look at the top card of their deck. They have Legion Warboss. Cool, cool. And then we're going to play this Seal of Fire. We draw Collector Oof here. So they attack us. I decide not to Seal of Fire their creature. Using Seal of Fire just as a gain 2 life seems pretty poor for it. Especially when they just get to keep plopping out the tokens anyway, so it literally doesn't do anything for us. They strip our Stomping Ground and then cast a Crater Maker. Now there I decide to actually kill that because it is a repeatable source of damage. So we play our Swamp here and pass turn. They did not draw a 3rd land. Actually, they did draw 3 lands. They just discarded one of them to Mox Diamonds. They didn't draw a 4th land. So we're going to draw and play our Bayou. And then I thought between Collector Oof and Vampire Hexmage. And I believe, yeah, we went with Vampire Hexmage and then stopped. Because Collector Oof is pretty good against Mox Diamond when they're already cut off on lands. So that's where I ended up going, was just, sure, we're going to pinch you on mana. And it immediately pays off. So I try to block the Kairi and immediately forget, or Carrie, excuse me, and immediately forget she has Menace. So, yeah, we get that reminder. And that's disappointing. So we'll just take 3 to the face here. That's fine. I'm not blocking the monkey. So we draw for turn, and we draw a Sphere of Resistance, to which I say no thank you. Instead I drop a Vampire Hexmage, because Vampire Hexmage is absolutely the best containment unit for the monkey. Now, I think about blocking the carry for a second here, but it's a bad decision, to be completely honest, because if they have any kind of removal spell, I just lose both creatures, and probably the game. So, no thank you to all of that. So we're at 8 here. Not the best life total to be at, but I draw a Snow-Covered Forest. That's fine by me. That definitely gives me the option to kill their creature with this Maelstrom Pulse, which I absolutely do. And I get just slightly aggressive by attacking with the oof. If they play a haster, I've got the Hex Mage to block it. So there they play the Shield Breaker. So now me attacking is completely out the window. And then I make them probably regret the fact that they played the Shield Breaker there by playing an artifact that they could have destroyed. I didn't have any artifacts in play and probably wasn't going to, so it's not a misplay on their behalf by any point, but they definitely... I'm glad they cast that before I cast the Sphere. So here they play the Smuggler's Copter, and I am incredibly happy that I have my oof in play. So we're going to play third basic, by the way. It was very fortunate I drew a lot of basics here. And immediately hit their Price of Progress, which makes it even more fortunate for me that I drew a lot of basics. I know that I hit the Price of Progress out of their hand, but making that only a 2 damage spell is pretty good. So that was fortunate for me. I'm not gonna lie that I got lucky there. And Scab-Clan Berserker. That card is also pretty bad for me, so it's a good thing that I got that with my Hymn to Turok. So we pass through. They play Figure of Destiny. And pump their figure. So we can't Lightning Bolt here, so instead we're going to get our commander out of our command zone. Okay, our companion, but still. So they play an Eidolon. And I'm thinking at this point, well, I need to get rid of that Eidolon because my entire deck is that. So we're going to play the Seal of Primordium. Get shocked, and then immediately seal the Eidolon. So they get their commander. Fine by me. We draw Peatland. And then cast Lurrus. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I did not cast the Mishra's Bauble, and my thought process behind that was, oh, it doesn't do anything. Why would I get my Mishra's Bauble? And the answer is, because then I have the option to draw a card if they ever kill my Collector Roof. But I didn't do it, so here we are. So post-combat, they cast Elysian War Boss. And that is fine by me. We draw our second Bauble, so hey, some real hot synergy right there. We hit Lutri and Magus of the Moon off our Valky. I had a long think about this. I was considering taking the Magus of the Moon with a thought process of making our non-basics into mountains, so we have the chance to actually cast our red spells in our hand, and also blanking their factory and their Mutavault, but that would have given them 4 red mana, which would have let them actually activate their Figure of Destiny and have a 4/4 in play and start aggroing, and these are things I did not want to do. So I believe I took the Lutri here. No, wait, took the Magus. Okay, that's fine. So they flip their Legion War Boss and attack with both creatures. They had a long think about this previously where they attacked with just the Goblin. And maybe like 30 seconds later they attacked with the Legion War Boss too. Which is not the best for us. So I blocked. I blocked with Vampire Hexmage on something and Valky on the other thing. It really didn't matter which was which, because both creatures were going to die, and I was going to lose my Valky, so they can have their Magus of the Moon back. But I needed to get that War Boss off the table, so they couldn't have repeatable creatures. So we lost Valky here. That's fine. We're going to pop to draw a card, and we draw Grove of the Burn Willows. That's fantastic. That, of course, opens up Lightning Bolt for us. And I'm happy to see Collective Brutality as well. I get to cast both of them. So this is bad for our opponent, to say the least. So we're going to escalate. We're going to, I believe it was shoot a creature and, no wait, we can do all three because Dark Confidant and Urza's Bauble were both bad for us. And I believe that's how we went. No, we didn't. We just went with the kill a creature and drain them for 2. I think it would have been okay for me to actually discard the Dark Confidant and make sure that I'm able to check their hand. So the other thing we do is we cast a Sealfire from the graveyard, and then pass turn here. I'm at 8 life and have no way to gain life right now except for attacking with Lurrus. And repeating Lurrus would have been pretty good. So they flash on the Lutri at the end of their turn, and I immediately seal a fire that because no thank you. They pass through. We draw Taiga. Taiga's great because Taiga allows me to Lightning Bolt. I decided not to attack here. I probably should have attacked, to be completely honest, but I didn't. So instead, we just passed through to end step. I think my game plan here was just sit back on Lightning Bolt so I couldn't cast the Valky out of my graveyard. Opponent plays another land, that's fine. We know they still have Magus of the Moon in their hand, and they definitely don't want to do that right now. End of turn, we of course just seal fire their creature. Continue that chain. So we cast Seal of Fire from the graveyard. And attack with the Vampire Hexmage. They do not block. We go to end step. They crack fetch, go get land, play Fiery Islet, you know, things like that. So they play Direfleet Daredevil. Now that's not where I wanted to be, of course, because they can start discarding cards, and yeah, they get to take our Collective Brutality, which is absolutely what they take. And that's pretty good, because since they're able to do that, now they can kill whatever they want. Now they kill the Lurrus, which is disappointing, and they target me to discard a card. So there I'm, of course, going to Lightning Bolt. I believe I Lightning Bolt, yeah, the Daredevil, which is a perfectly fine play. That way, of course, they can't take a card out of, or they can't do anything with that card. But they did get rid of Magus of the Moon, because once again, they kind of saw that it would be worse for them to have Magus of the Moon in play, considering I already had all my mana. So I was fine there. So they don't do anything there. I cycle Sheltered Thicket at the end of the turn. Draw Blood Crypt. We draw Wasteland. Wasteland's great. Wasteland immediately targets the Mutavault. Then I cast Cindervines. And feel pretty safe attacking for 4 here. So they crack their Fiery Islet, play Sunbaked Canyon, and we pass through. I get Life from the Loam, go for the Mana Denial plan, Wasteland the Mutavault, or sorry, the Mishra's Factory. They're down to 3 lands. I'm going to aggro for 4 again, take them to 6, and I have 4 points of burn on the table with Cinder Vines and Seal of Fire. And then they scoop them up. All right, so this is just the end recap there. Obviously, we did get it 2-0 versus Red Deck wins. A little bit of luck involved there, I won't lie. The having basic lands against Price of Progress definitely was nice, and the Wrenn and 6 lock game 1. But that's how it was drawn up to do. Have some removal spells and stabilize the game, which is exactly what I did both games in that match. So 1-1 on the week. Feeling pretty good about this deck. Yes, I did lose the match against the aggro prowess build. I feel like, though, that was my fault. At least a majority of it was my fault with that keep on game 3. I'm not going to harp on that too hard, though. But I definitely like the deck against these aggro decks. I may be having a knee-jerk reaction on wanting to add the Weather the Storm in the sideboard. That's because I played 2 aggro decks. Next week, if I decide to play this again, I could run into 2 blue decks and then go, why is the Weather the Storm in my sideboard? So, who knows? This is still a very open format, and it's a great tournament, so having a blast. Hope you enjoyed watching this, and thanks again.